begin talking about Arlecchino, we need to talk about the ancient era, before the dark sun's light illuminated the underground. This is information we can find in Arlecchino's weapon description. The time mentioned here is even before the Crimson Moon dynasty. The history of an ancient and glorious clan that still ruled the vast kingdom would put us in Khanraya before there was the Khanrayan kingdom itself. The mind-muddled king written here is probably the same king mentioned in the Paranhari books. It's the ruler that basically told his priests and followers to do whatever they want since he doesn't know. The fact that the documents claim him as mind-muddled and somewhat foolish, shows the author's intention to emphasize the wrong choices the king has made during his time. In fact, these people didn't really veneer the Crimson Moon, but they were pretty much brainwashed that the remnants of the Crimson Moon in the sky ruled all, making them become the dynasty of it. The result of that is the king of humanity taking upon the name of Crimson Moon, pretty much confirming that the Crimson dynasty itself was built upon falsehoods and only materialized out of dogma. To make this happen, the dogmatic priests would be the key figure that we would need to find out. Actually, both the Dark Sun dynasty and the Crimson Moon dynasty emerged from the sweet talkings of priests and wise men. It's reasonable to believe that someone from Khanraya interfered within these lands meticulously, perhaps for the sake of creating destiny. This would make people yearn for transcendent individuals to build glorious towers to pray for salvation. By referring to that, Tevat's remaining towers that Khanraya could have built would most likely be the Spiral Abyss. If we are to believe that Tevat is inside, and Khanraya is outside, in an opposite way, then the Spiral Abyss structured in a way where it is actually pointing above would corroborate to the story of building a tower to the top. This would also support the part of the story about the astrologists that glimpsed the inverted image of the false sky, the origin of all the world's fate, and waiting for salvation. These astrologists were branded as heretics most likely by the priests in order to hide the truth about fate. Since studying the stars and constellations would eventually result in the true revelation about this fake world, we do see parts of these astrologists, especially Mona, who uses hydromancy. She explains her method of finding people's fates involves looking through the reflection of stars on water's surface. Using these methods, she indeed note that fate cannot be changed, though maybe not to a point of what that means or why that is. However, a greater mage like Barbaloth, who was Mona's master, would probably know the truth behind all of this and what it all means. Continuing on, the description read that by the time of the blackened sun, the name of Crimson Moon had long faded along with the crimson that flowed. So the Crimson Moon dynasty fell and the Black Sun dynasty rose, leaving the Crimson Moon the title of Balamoon. The Balamoon that Arlecchino's title is a part of. In fact, most of Arlecchino's lore revolves around this Balamoon, the unclean who suffered from a curse of unblemished ones not yet tainted by fate. Probably being one herself. On the next part of the description it reads, "Few survived the utter destruction of their kind, hiding in the shadows where the sun did not shine, longing for the Crimson Moon to decree their desire for vengeance be repaid." And Arlecchino would probably be among those said few here. One of the very few who managed to evade destruction, well, probably more of a descendant of those few. We can't really decipher her true age, but due to her child and teen self being shown in animations, we can deduce that she's not unnaturally old. We can assume though that the curse just rides within the bloodline, and if we are to assume that the descendants get varying levels of the curse, Arlecchino probably got the strongest version of it. Unfortunately, the so-called repayment never succeeded, and the Dark Sun also fell to the same folly. They too also touched the power of the Abyss, and eventually were interrupted by the 7 Archons. Then Piero escaped, then came the fall of Khanraya. In her boss form description it reads that, "The ancient's Balamoon blood flows within her fate, granting her all that the dynasty once had, yearning, power and curses alike. In her short life, she has supped of countless agonies and drunk deep of the cup of suffering, just as her ancestors once did when they imbibed poison at the rising of the Dark Sun. Still, neither suffering nor fate has proved a fatal toxin to her. Instead, they are the firewood fueling her quietly burning hearth, and are the fire bringing her children warmth. Someday, the hearth fire's faint radiance shall burn the old world away, incinerating the final scion of the baleful moon as well." So Puer is most likely the Balamoon's last descendant, and like the description says about imbibing poison at the rising of the Dark Sun, constantly desiring revenge. This makes sense on Crucibana's fixation and expectation of Puer when she was the mother of House of the Hearth. She probably knew about this curse and the Balamoon, therefore seeing the potential. Back to the weapon description, I'm assuming that the tyrannical usurper in question is Phanes. In other documents, the usurpers are Tekinchali ones that took the powers of dragon sovereigns. If the destiny she wove mocks us so, then let us mock destiny as loudly as we may. Greater than the destiny she wove probably points to one who made the system of fate, which would be Phanes here. until the last shadow of the ashen sun burns away the old world, until the crimson moon witnesses the immaculate dawn. From this quote there's a lot of candidates of last shadows that want to burn the old world, but mostly in line with Fatui. So maybe this is pointing to the Tsaritsa or someone with the same motive. Also there's quite a mention of the old world but also hints of the kings having some sort of secret, which is something we'll have to get through. The king of humanity should take upon himself the name of the crimson moon, and by the light and flame of two worlds judge fickle fate. Thus they yearned for transcendent individuals to build countless glorious towers, and prayed for the long-dead crimson moon to bring them salvation. This feels very similar to those who wish to touch the sky, only to be met with celestial judgment. They wanted to see something that was beyond that sky. They may be a bit different from descenders though, maybe just those people who have the capability to challenge the skies and become something beyond Fani's system and gods themselves. We already read about the remnant of the crimson moon, meaning the crimson moon was already gone. Sure, the dynasty happened, but the moon was only there in form of remnants. The kingdom was never structured properly due to several issues, then resulting in failure. It just concludes that there just never was a true perfect crimson moon, only scraps, which the priests convinced the people to revere those things, making the king the new crimson moon until they realized the deception too late, and losing all of its faith on those priests. Those who remained alive stayed silent until there was probably only one heir left in their bloodline, which is Arlecchino. What do you all think of these theories? Let us all know in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next video.